once we realize and live from the understanding that all effects are the result of an idea, which is the real cause behind all effects, we begin to see the world through new eyes. So real cause is the original cause, the Mother, Father, God, Big Bang cause. And then that started the whole process of cause and effect. So we think of a baton. This end of a baton is the cause, and this end of the baton is the effect. And they're indivisible. Cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. On and on and on. And we need to be able to live with the ambiguity of that everything is cause and everything in the visible world is effect. It's inseparable. And we get caught up in an either or sort of concept about spirituality and the way things operate. And that's where we get tripped up. That's where we come up with the yes buts. It's all the same. There is the cause and the effect. And we can have the ability to change the cause and therefore change the effect. Ernest Holmes said in a book called Unlimited Living, Ernest Holmes, who is our spiritual philosopher, the beginning of religious science, he said, we need to have a big concept of the fundamental nature of life, God, the universe. We need to know there is limitless abundance of all good things. And when we know that, when we embrace that concept of limitlessness, the huge possibilities of all, then more and more wonderful things start showing up for us. Terry and Robert introduced me to the book of John Randolph Price's book on abundance. And he says, your only source of abundance is the God presence within you. If your mind is on the source, the cause, the supply flows freely. If your mind is on the effect, you block the flow. The more impersonal you become regarding where your abundance seems to originate, the more personal you can become with your relationship with the source of your good. The closer the relationship to your God self, the greater the abundance of your life. Knowing that God, the essence of abundance, of all good, originates in you, through you. We've talked so often in this community about happiness and the source of happiness, and understanding that happiness is not something that comes from outside. It is generated from the inside. And that is the same in the case of abundance. Abundance doesn't come from the outside. It's not money that showers down on you from the gods of goodness. It is that sense and that feeling of abundance and your connection to the universal whole that generates all good that shows up in your life. I'm going to quote from my good friend Mark Napo, who I incidentally am going to get to meet in March. My friends in Albuquerque sent me a pass to go see Mark Napo in March, so I am so excited because I have a spiritual crush on him. Spiritual. He says on March the 10th about the Creator's cycle. Nothing escapes the Creator's cycle. No plants, horses, trees, birds, or human being. Not the life of the mind, not the life of the heart, not the life of the spirit. All living things emerge, gather, spark new life, fall apart, die, and emerge in new ways. Each soul is the gust of God's breath, unfolding in the great energy that surrounds us like ever-moving stream. The goal is not to cheat death, but to live in the stream with a humility and aliveness that only an acceptance of death can release. When we try to deny death, we can grow sick from frantically chasing any challenge that will occupy our minds. In living the other extreme, we can grow sick from thinking only of death, from letting death be all that we see. That makes a sad career of fear. Beyond all design and desire, we survive. And like stones that are eroded by forces that can never be seen or stopped, our reward is the pain and wonder of being our inner beauty to the sky, of bearing our inner beauty to the sky. What we carry deep within, if we live honestly, will inevitably be worn outwardly. The experience of living this fully has nothing to do with removing ourselves from the Creator's cycle. Too often we struggle stubbornly in an attempt to protect ourselves from the friction of being alive, when it is precisely that friction that works our spirit into a seeable gem. We are more malleable than we think, more durable and changeable than all hope. Then thin and fragment petals do not hide from the wind. They survived to die and break ground again. Even when one life we shed and reroot, we break, bleed, and rearrange into yet another beautiful thing that learns how to reach. Resisting this process doubles our pain. Singing our way through it is a source of wisdom and beauty. So allowing ourselves to know that even strife and difficulties are shaping us in beautiful ways, creating more richness in the essence of who we are, allowing Spirit to show up and shine forth through each one of us. Ernest Tone says we should always be breaking down old patterns of thought and creating new ones of a greater vision. We are and will always be a work in progress, end quote. When we limit our idea of ourselves, we also limit the possibility of the world in which we live. Dr. Holmes reminds us that the creative mind cannot stop creating. The universal divine that we call God, that creative mind, cannot stop creating. It is always creating something through and for us. It is always creating something. As we examine our personal lives, we begin to see what we are creating. Meaning that what we believe is showing up in our lives. And if you ever doubt your faith, if you ever doubt your belief system, if you ever wonder what you really truly believe, look around your life. And it will shine forth for you. It will be very clear for you. We serve ourselves by recognizing the power and presence within. And it is that service to self that allows us to feel our connection with everyone and everything else. Are we creating a small, listen now, are we creating a small personal world separate from the allness of all life? Or are we part of it? Have you discovered a passion for service or expression that will take you beyond yourself and serve the larger community? Have you found your passion that will serve the larger community. By living courageous, fearless lives, we open the wave of passion within that brings forth fresh new eyes and new ideas and opportunities. We are created to live a magnificent life. Listen, we're created to live a magnificent life. A magnificent life. The creator of everything has created us and plopped us down right here in the middle of everything to be a part of it all, not separated from it. But we are created to live magnificent lives. As we begin to surrender to the power and presence within our lives, open to a greater way of living, we take one that takes us beyond who and what we thought we were into a space of connection, that makes service to ourselves and others the most exciting part of life. To be of service is to be living in the most exciting part of life. The giving of it is the big idea that creates more magnificent lives. So here's an example of being in service. And I on the news, I don't know about you all, but I feel like the news has gotten to be sort of like middle school gossip. Yeah, he said, she said, blah, 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 blah. It's really hard to believe that it has any good qualities to it. I know that the good will always prevail. But here's the story I wanted to share. Amid all of that news, of the little pettiness of news, was the story that Steve Hartman shared on the road. He's another one of my spiritual heroes. This is a story about Heather Kruger, who at 27 years old was suddenly faced with liver disease, stage 4 liver disease, and she wasn't expected to live. It was a big, sudden life change for her. And there was a big commotion about, oh, what are we going to do? We need to find a liver donor who will be compatible with her. And so the word went out, and this fellow, Chris Dempsey, he overheard people talking about how this young woman needed a liver. And he said, well, you know, I was a Marine. And as a Marine, I was taught to move forward, to walk into solutions rather than turning my back and walking away. And I thought, hey, what the heck? I'll get tested and I'll see if my liver is compatible with this young woman whom he had never met, never heard of. But he said, you know, if that doesn't work for her, then somebody else will be a compatible donor. I'll be a compatible donor with somebody else. And so this is something I can do to be of service. So he got his test to see, and sure enough, he was a match with Heather Kruger, whom he had never met, remember? And so they went to lunch together and met, and he offered to give her half of his liver. And so the operation was performed successfully. I know, I'm gonna cry. You know, I haven't cried in a long time. You may have noticed that. So he gave her half of his liver. And she gave him all of her heart. So a year and a half after that surgery, they were married. Now, how serendipitous is that? How amazing is that? The divine, creative essence put that together in such a beautiful and powerful way. I call it the Huda Thunkus. Huda Thunk that Chris would have overheard the call for a liver. And he just thought that would be a good way to be of service, and he stepped forward. How delicious is that? So he was rewarded for his service, for stepping up in generosity and goodness. We all know, as though something inside were forever telling us, Ernest Holmes said, that we were created not only to live and work, but also to be happy, purposeful, and enthusiastic. So when we are thinking, the important creative part of the thought is the enthusiasm of it all, the feel of it all. It's not our thoughts that are creative, it is our feelings that are creative. The energy behind our feelings are what are creative. I can think a thought ad infinitum, but if there's no power of feeling and emotion behind it, nothing happens. So when we talk about effect, it is the feeling that is underneath the cause. The joy and enthusiasm of the cause. So just reminding you that everything in the visible world is an effect. But every effect is from the cause. And the cause must be filled with emotional enthusiasm to be creative. So I'd like to invite Steve to join with me as we are in prayer, as he finds his way into that deeper place. I want to just share an affirmation that I would like for you to think about while we're praying. I am uplifted, sustained, and supported by a power greater than I am. As I surrender to the power and presence within me, I am transformed and filled with ideas for a world that supports unity among all life. I show up, I step up, and I do what is now in front of me to do. What is now in front of me to do. So I invite you to turn within. Allow your heart to open to all possibilities of good, abundance, joy, peace, and harmony. And in the quiet of the moment, I invite you to allow yourself to be aware of the next best thing for you to do, to create, to do universe, God, the divine, Mother, Father, Spirit, is constantly whispering to you with creative ideas, creative actions, creative thoughts. That quiet voice is always whispering you forward, calling you forward into service, into generosity, into love, and into peace. In this quiet, still moment, I open myself to the wisdom that the divine is pressing down on me, pressing around me, pressing through me. I remain alert and aware. Of the creative thoughts, the creative cause that is whispering to me. And so with joy and enthusiasm, I catch these thoughts. I am stirred by them. I am enthused and excited by them. And I give thanks. I know that it is good and only good at the center and the core of my being. And I let that shine forth. I claim that for each one of us. I know that it is done, and I give thanks for it by saying